Yeah.
So they're basically USAID is trying to institute a system of censorship around the world that censors in the same way as the U.S. once did and Europe does now, So it's back to authoritarianism. Once they get censorship set up everywhere, it's basically over.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. John Rubino is with us, and make sure you go check out his Substack, rubino.substack.com. Questions, comments, kl@kerrylutz.com. John, it's been a while, man. I don't know that we've talked since Trump's inauguration. We definitely haven't the past 3 weeks. But my goodness, did you ever see anything like this?
Hey, Kerry. Yeah, we need to do a 2 or 3 hour show today, some kind of Joe Rogan length thing, so we can cover all the stuff that's happened. But yes, a ton of stuff is happening, but a good place to start might be with how the deep state is being exposed. Trump has Elon Musk and the rest of the Doge guys out there looking into this stuff, and what they're finding is astounding. So let me start just a little further back and work our way up to USAID. AIDS, because it's just crazy. So basically what has happened, we're now finding out, is that the deep state, both Republican and Democrat, is totally bipartisan. They've set up this ecosystem of government-funded entities that is basically just a slush fund for useless political people. So basically, in today's world, in today's U.S., you can get a degree from, say, Georgetown or someplace, and then you go be a congressional aide, and then you go to a think tank, and then you go to some NGO that does, hands money to dictators in some other part of the country, and then you come back and you work for a K Street lobbyist, and then maybe you run for Congress, and then maybe you go work for a Ivy League university, and it's all within this ecosystem where you do basically nothing. You just hang out and you vote for the right people and you donate to the right people. And you accomplish basically nothing that's useful in any way, but the government funds it all. So you and the tens of thousands of people like you end up making a ton of money for an entire career. And it's this cushy, nice life that they've set up for themselves. And that's all being exposed now. And maybe one of the biggest entities that participates in this is USAID, which is this basically, the safe arm of the CIA. In other words, they do stuff that the CIA wouldn't be caught dead doing, but they do it in a way that is easy to hide. And so they're out there basically funding the mainstream media. They hand out tens of millions of dollars to the BBC and this thing called Politico.
Yes.
Where they went in and they basically bought tens of millions of dollars worth of subscriptions to Politico, and that's how they finance Politico. So all of these things are out there just kind of self-perpetuating a system. Okay, and a lot of what USAID does is overthrow other governments or in other ways suborn other countries and basically just keep them under the control of the U.S. empire. And so Trump has basically shut that thing down now. He's laid off 97% of the people that are working for it and just shut down all the funds transfers to legacy media outlets. And it's got the deep state power freaked. I mean, they are absolutely terrified that this might actually work because there's some question about whether it's constitutional for the executive branch to shut down an entity that is funded by Congress. We'll find that out. But so far, Trump went and just did it. And so this thing that was basically just the hidden evil arm of the U.S. empire, and stomping around the world doing all kinds of crazy stuff, is basically done now, and that is just phenomenal. That's a great thing that's happening. So, and that, and among a lot of other things, the government is under Trump, they're operating with a flood the zone strategy where they're coming up with 5 different things that outrage the deep state every day. And so the legacy media can't cover all that stuff, or that they try to cover today's stuff. That means they have to let yesterday's stuff slide. And so much of this stuff is basically, for that reason, under the radar. The Trump administration is publicizing what they want to be publicized and just letting the other stuff be hidden because they're flooding the zone with everything. So far, so far so good, and also so far so entertaining. This is just hilarious to watch. And a good place to go to see what the deep state is thinking about all this is the New York Times' online arm. Because they're pretty smart people. The New York Times is one of the pinnacles of a mainstream media career path. So they get smart people who can articulate this stuff really well. And so they sit around and they talk about whether it's over for the Democrat Party and what they should do about all this stuff. And it's hilarious. They're so baffled by what's happening.
They got tens of millions of dollars from USAID also.
Yes, they did. They're on the donor list.
They weren't supporting my website, John. Were they behind Dollar Collapse?
Okay, here's a possibility for the way this goes. Is that some court tells Trump that he is not allowed to shut down USAID. So then they say, well, okay, we'll just convert it to a pro-MAGA slush fund, and maybe they will be. You might get a check from those guys pretty soon, Kerry.
That would be nice. I wouldn't turn that down. But
that would be poetic justice. You say, well, you can't stop USAID. And Trump says, okay, well, we'll just co-opt it then. We'll just use it for our own purposes.
It's not really what he wants to do. They said they're going to fire out of 13,000 employees, they're going to keep 300 of them. And they're folding it into the State Department. Now, USAID was always a CIA cutout, projecting soft power. So yeah, we'll get running water going in your country, and you agree that you'll buy into the system and you'll help us spy and whatever else. That's a whole. They don't just give people stuff, give countries stuff. They have to agree to be our partners, in quotes. Right.
And among the biggest things they have to agree to, these countries have to agree to censor dissenting voices. Yeah. So they're basically USAID is trying to institute a system of censorship around the world that censors in the same way as the U.S. once did and Europe does now, So it's back to authoritarianism. Once they get censorship set up everywhere, it's basically over, right? Because how do you stop a government that is able to keep you from speaking? And that's what we were so close to. We were inches away from this stuff happening. With open borders, we were going to be a one-party state with 4 more years, and there would have been enough illegal immigrants in swing states to throw every election to the Democrats. So we were right there. One lost election. If Kamala Harris was president right now, democracy around the world, not just in the U.S., would be over. Amazing how close we got.
And they were also putting in billions of dollars funding relief efforts for the so-called newcomers coming into the country illegally. Hundreds of millions of dollars to something called the Lutheran Immigration Services. I mean, it's staggering the extent of the corruption. And yeah, they did some good things. They did food relief, vaccines. I mean, I don't know what kind of vaccines they were, whether RFK would approve of them or not.
Oh, Kerry, could I step in right there? I just read a thing that said there's this huge surplus of those mRNA vaccines.
Oh.
And so so they're using it as part of foreign aid now. They're sending all those vaccines to other countries in order to vaccinate children, because that way they can buy them from Pfizer and the other big pharma companies, who then don't lose money on the vaccines that you and I won't take. That's not really funny. I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh about that, because it's ruining the lives of children all around the world.
Oh, it's awful. Well, the illegal immigrants that are here, they're committing crimes that Americans won't commit, right?
Yeah, who's going to do it if not the immigrants, right?
Or that. But yeah, there's some legitimate programs in there, but it was a thing initially. JFK created it by executive order, and it was there to project soft power, meaning, dollar diplomacy, the velvet fist, if you will. And now it's morphed into like a gravy train for the Dems that, where dollars go to die.
Well, see, we can't just blame the Dems on this because Republicans are a part of the gravy train too. And USAID, after you're done being a think tank guy or a congressional aide or something like that, you just go to one of these NGOs that are financed by USAID, and that pays your salary. So, I mean, you could literally get through an entire lifetime bouncing from one of these entities to another, never accomplish a positive thing in your life, retire with a ton of money, and everybody thinks you did important stuff. And that is the ecosystem they've created. It's astounding. And to see these guys get fired en masse is poetic justice of the highest order. I mean, this is just amazing. Yeah. And so what podcasts now have to do is start following these people after they get fired to see where they end up. Because I think their lives are going to be a little less cushy than they were.
A subsidized podcast, no doubt. Bill Kristol, big neocon, his NGO got paid like $8 million that we know of. There's a lot more coming. And, he's a pro-democracy group. It's a pro-democracy NGO that Kristol sits on. And, got 8 million. Politico, 34 million. New York Times it's staggering in the scope of it, It's really.
Oh, yeah, it is absolutely astounding. And we kind of sort of knew this was happening, but we didn't know that it was happening on this scale. I mean, this is new information for most people. So,
we knew the extent of it, but we didn't know the specifics. We knew the macro. We knew they had to be stealing a fortune because the budget, which was already inflated in 2019, went up $1.5 trillion, a third. And certainly they aren't doing anything, beneficial for that $1.5 trillion more dollars. So it's basically all being stolen. Now they've gone into to Medicare and Medicaid, found $100 billion off the top of misspending. I assume that includes fraud, improper payments, et cetera, et cetera. Wait till they get to the Pentagon, John. Can you imagine?
That's going to be an interesting one because, the Republicans are not going to like that part of it. They're liking the whole USAID thing for the most part because it's mostly left-wing entity right now. But when they start getting into the Pentagon, that's when we find out how serious these guys are about actually finding the truth. And, here's hoping. The Pentagon has never passed an audit. There are tens of trillions of dollars that have just gone missing. Officially missing. We know where they are. They're in dictators' Swiss bank accounts and the generals' second houses and things like that. It's all been spent by the guys who siphoned it off along the way. And you know what? If we can shine some light on that, that would be amazing. But I don't want to get too excited about this because there are barriers in the way of a lot of this stuff. But so far it's been hilarious.
The firewall and the preening by the left of, they haven't mentioned no rational citizen can be in favor of money just being flushed down the toilet, right? Nobody can be. But these guys are going out there defending it, never saying that, they're exposing waste, just that Elon Musk, who voted for him, he's unappointed, he's running the country, all this stuff. And in the meantime, they keep dropping more and more and more fraud, and it's going to be like this in every agency. Like, I know for sure when they get to HUD, there's going to be billions because after the foreclosure crisis, there were all these lawsuits brought against the banks, and they were all settled, and they all involved payments to NGOs, along with a lump sum payment to the government. So there's billions of dollars that have been floating around HUD getting stolen, basically. And you pretty much go, also, it's like the people in Treasury, when they went there, they were told they were told never to reject a payment. Every payment that came in, they had to pay. Man, had I known that, I would have been sending my bills into the Treasury years ago. I'm thinking about doing it now, but those Doge guys might have cut it off for me.
Yeah. You might have missed your chance at this gravy train here, Kerry, but you never know. I mean, the scenario where the Trump administration doesn't kill, but instead co-ops USAID is still possible. And if that's the case, you would be on the list. So don't give up. You could get your $8 million.
Okay. I'm willing to try it. Why not? What do I got to lose? Certainly, the benefits have just not the so-called benefits to the country just have not been there. But that's Doge for you. It's amazing. They're using AI. They get into the system, and these nobody's ever audited this stuff. Like, they could allocate X amount in Congress, and then the Treasury could pay out 5 times more, and nobody would ever know.
Yeah. And the big risk they took before they started all this stuff was having Elon Musk hang out with Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Because that was a very coherent target right there, That building could have blown up at any time that they were in there together.
Oh, they never do that. We know that.
I think that, they were probably using Elon Musk's private security to protect the buildings. And that's why it didn't blow up. But anyhow, yeah.
Laser drone killers and all that kind of stuff. And, it just shows how incompetent they are. They tried to take him out twice and, they just couldn't do it. So now they're stuck. And these are the guys we've been trusting to run the world, right?
I wouldn't say they're stuck. I would say they're just trying some new way to do it, and something will happen pretty soon. And the idea that this is going to be peaceful in its current form, in other words, flooding the zone for the next 4 years, not a chance. Something serious is going to happen in an attempt to stop what is now happening. And so, we should be ready for that, because that's the world could change in a heartbeat.
It almost
it came really close to changing in a heartbeat. And one of the things that is keeping Trump going is that J.D. Vance would probably continue the Trumpian revolution.
He's smart than Trump.
Yeah. And he's got a lot of energy too. He would. He wouldn't slack off. So it's not clear how much you would gain by taking out Trump, because J.D. Vance is there. And hopefully those 3 guys, Vance and Musk and Trump, are never in the same building, definitely never in the same car. Okay. Hopefully they know that.
Not eating at the same McDonald's, right?
Yeah. And so it looks like
it's better to stay away from Mickey D's.
It looks like your boy RFK has a chance at HHS now. It's going to be a very close vote, but it's possible now.
Tiebreaker. It'll be a tiebreaker. I think he's going to make it. And Tulsi and Kash Patel, they tied up Kash Patel for a week. Kash Patel is going to make it, which means that he got his entire team in, and really, it becomes an impossible task to turn this back. The tide, people aren't stupid. And even if they are stupid, they still understand the grift that's going on. This become like a massive grift. We always knew that government was a grift. We just had no idea. Can you imagine if they check out the payments to Al Sharpton, how much money they'll find?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to find all this stuff. And well, the cabinet as it's evolving is I don't know. I don't want to say almost too good to be true. That's my first impression. But these guys, there are experience issues and stuff with some of these guys. But it's going to be the most entertaining cabinet for sure that has ever been. And have you seen Trump's new press secretary?
Yeah, she is a bulldog.
She is 26 years old and hyper articulate, and she's just shutting these guys. I thought Kayleigh McEnany that Trump had for a while.
Yeah, she was good.
I thought she was the best that would ever, and I was surprised he didn't just bring her back. But this new one is also better than Kayleigh McEnany, I think, in a lot of ways. So, having somebody like that as a spokesperson is priceless. It's invaluable to be able just to shut down the DC press corps with facts. And so
Caroline Lev.
Yeah. And so the press corps never gets a gotcha moment, and they never get any kind of a soundbite that they can use, because everything she's saying totally contradicts everything they believe. So yeah, she's good. So this is impressive so far. Trump definitely hit the ground running.
And look at all the people from the press who are like basically going bye-bye. We already saw it started before, but now they got rid of Jim Acosta, and there's a whole bunch of other guys from the press that are just, I mean, you can see The View is not long for this world. And I don't know how long Joe and Mika are going to be around, because basically the company that owns them has spun them off, and there's no way that MSNBC can make money. Maybe they were bad as well.
Did you hear the details of the spinoff? They don't get the MSNBC name, and they don't get any reporting help from NBC. So they're a no-name new podcast just entering the market right now with people that have really small audiences. So I think MSNBC will not be in the top 100 of whatever they're going to be, cable channels or podcast series or whatever, whatever form they take. They're going to be small, and those guys are going to be making, what do you make if you're in the 110th biggest podcast and there's 50 of you on the same podcast? You don't make very serious money.
Work there.
Yeah, maybe you might have to think of it as
problems.
Yeah, you think of it as a way to not be unemployed while you're looking for a real job, but
pretend that you're not.
But right, so Kerry, how do we invest for this now? Because is the stock market going to go up?
Well, the miners are even going up now.
Yeah, John. Gold is rocking now for two reasons. One is that, three reasons. One is that it's baked into the cake. We've already borrowed so much money, and the interest on that debt is already soaring stratospherically. So we got a financial crisis out there no matter what. Mm-hmm. The second thing is that, or I don't know, maybe it's the third thing. Well, anyhow, the second thing is that Trump is an easy money guy. He likes low interest rates, and he already came out and said, I'm going to demand that the Fed immediately cut interest rates, and I think the rest of the world's central banks should do the same thing. So he, as a real estate guy, he knows that interest rates should be low all the time. And so we're going to have fairly easy monetary policy under Trump. And we're going to be throwing easy money basically into the everything bubble, the biggest financial bubble of all time, which is pretty damn inflationary when you think about it. So that's good for gold. And then we've got this thing going on with the tariffs in London, causing gold to pour out of the London markets and into New York. And two things about that. One is that if you try to buy gold on the London Metals Exchange now, there's an 8-week wait. And normally they have gold sitting in a vault. You buy it by using a futures contract or whatever, and they just go get the gold and ship it to you. Now they don't have it. So they're basically defaulting on 1 and 2 month futures contracts, which is that's a default in a metals exchange. It's a huge, big deal. And the other thing is, to ship gold from London to New York isn't just put the bullion on a plane and fly it over. You got to ship those bars, because the two, New York and London, use different kinds of gold bars. So London has to ship their beautiful gold bars to Switzerland to be melted down and recast in the form that New York likes, and then have that be shipped to New York. So this is serious. This gold flowing out of London isn't going to just turn right back around and flow back into London out of New York. And that's spooking the gold market. So gold is now rapidly approaching $3,000 an ounce, which is a huge deal. And like you said, the gold miners are finally starting to catch a bid. So if you want to see what $2,800 gold means for the miners, just watch the next earnings season, which is underway now. The gold miners have to announce their earnings pretty soon, and they will have sold a lot of gold at very high prices So some of those earnings are going to be pretty nice. And that's part of why people are buying the miners now, because they're anticipating some better than expected earnings reports. So here we go.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Yeah.
The miners in this kind of a bull market usually do extremely well. And what also does really well is silver. In the last year of a precious metals bull market, silver goes straight up and its percentage gains double gold's at least. So this might be a time to be buying some silver if you don't already have a big, nice stack, which you should. I mean, who listens to your show and doesn't have a stack of silver?
I hope all of you out there have one. I know I got a pretty nice stack. And, one of our sponsors here, West Red Lake Gold, they're going to be producing in Q2. Their PFS that they just put out had gold at $2,200, and they had a 255% IRR. Now, that's basically you just added on $750 profit, and they're calculating they're going to produce 70,000 ounces a year. They'll probably do more than that. So their assumptions are so conservative, and they're definitely going to be producing. I'm not telling anyone to buy it or not. I'm just saying the economics of what they presented as opposed to what the real world is now is kind of mind-numbing, John.
Yeah, I've got West Red Lake on my Substack newsletter recommended list too. And a big part of that is that they're going to do the phase change now. When you go from being an explorer or a developer to a producer, you've taken a lot of the risk out of the equation because you proved that there is gold there and that you can get it out of the ground and process it. So once you prove you do that, then you're a producer, which trades at a higher ratio in relation to everything else about you. And so West Red Lake, in the second half of this year, is going to become a producer. And hopefully there aren't a lot of growing pains in the new, the mine ramping up and everything, and the mill ramping up. But if it goes even reasonably smoothly, and all of their numbers were very conservative, and they're going to be putting out some really good earnings reports by the end of the year. So here's hoping for them and a lot of other entities that are kind of in that class.
And their management, Shane Williams, is the preeminent mine guy when it comes to mine restarts. He's done, I think this is his sixth. And, it sounds like, mine restart, you just turn the switch back on and everything is fine. Well, the company that had that mine before kind of screwed things up because they didn't understand their metallurgy and the, how to properly process the type of deposit that they had. But this guy is like brilliant. And, they're financed now. They got the last tier of financing on, non-dilutive. It's a credit line. They drew down, I think it's $35 million. They drew down a significant portion. So they're going to be ready to go. And they're only calculating a mine life of like 7 years, and, which is insane because so with a 7-year mine life with $2,200 gold and 70,000 ounces per annum production, all those things taken into account, they're going to way under promise and hopefully way over deliver. But everything, as you know and I know only too well, we have the battle scars in this sector, is really it's a heartbreaker sector of the market. But hey, what about tariffs here? Mexico, Canada, like all we asked is just don't send your people over the border and stop sending the drugs. Like I think in Canada, they decriminalized fentanyl and they said, oh, no, you can't push us around. And then one day they said, oh, no, we were always cooperating. This is always what we were going to do. But what do you make of this?
Well, I think Trump is a transactional president, and tariffs are his opening bid when he wants something from somebody. So what he does is he sees a country who he wants to behave a certain way, and he immediately slaps tariffs on them. Since we're the biggest market for basically everything in the world, that is an existential threat to almost any country. So on day one, they're looking at an existential threat over here and maybe doing what Trump wants over here, and it becomes a no-brainer. They do what he wants. So he doesn't expect to replace the income tax with tariff revenue. what he expects to do is to use tariffs as a behavior modification tool internationally, and then get things he wants from other countries. And mostly what he wants is for them to set up factories over here. So, from a working class point of view, Donald Trump is the best president ever, even though he's a billionaire who might not care personally about 40-year-old high school educated white guys or anything. But what he's doing by demanding that, it's the best thing that's ever happened for working class people, because factories coming back at the same time the border is closed, by the way, means much higher wages for people who work with their hands. And it's about time, so that basically is, I'm not sure how much of this is part of Trump's plan, in his mind, but it's working out that way. He's using tariffs to impose behavior change on countries, mostly by making them build factories here, and that's helping working people. So as a process, it's excellent. I hope it keeps up.
Yeah. Hey, so what do you think of the prospects of annexing Greenland?
Yeah. Well, you elect a real estate guy, and you got to expect him to be out there trying to buy undervalued real estate. So, he's talking about taking over the West Bank in Gaza now too, right?
Good water views there, man. That's harder and harder.
Because it is. You look at it. You just look at a picture of it, and it is prime real estate, and that's probably warm water there too, right? What sea is that? Is that? I'm having trouble picturing that. It's not the Pacific. If it's the Mediterranean, that strip of Mediterranean real estate is probably worth more than the GDPs of all the countries in that region. So, Trump is looking at that, and that's what he's thinking is, hey, okay, we'll line hotels all along here. It'll be Miami Beach, but with better water, so that's not a surprise. It's probably a humanitarian catastrophe if they just kick out the people who live there or who lived there prior to the bombing. But it probably is his thought process. And there's no way to talk about the Middle East without running up against the humanitarian crisis part of it all, because, so many people are suffering, and laughing about Trump, turning that into a resort or something like that is maybe over the line, but I think it is what he's thinking. And hopefully it's done in a way that isn't horrendous, because anything can happen, but hopefully it's not the worst case scenario.
Did you see the look on Netanyahu's face when Trump mentioned that? Like, they did not talk about this, I'm convinced, because Netanyahu's jaw dropped to the floor. And
Netanyahu, he thought that was his resort community project, and Trump took it away from him. Yeah. So,
hey, I can see the buildings, wall to wall with Trump on them, right? They'll have the Trump logo on, and they called it, what did they call it? Maragaza or Gaza Lago?
What a world.
Real estate development, but they have to do something different. I think the point is, you can't solve a problem by the same level of thinking that created it. And when you try to solve something and it doesn't work and you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you got to do something different. So maybe that's the point of this whole exercise. What is your biggest surprise about Trump's second term here?
How much they've done. Because they just went for it. I thought, I was afraid that it was going to be the same kind of sloppy thing that he did first time around, even though they seem to be more on top of it. But this time, geez, it's there is so much happening that it's hard to keep track of. And
exactly the point.
There's really no reason for it to end anytime soon, because there's so much stuff to be done. Like you said, we haven't even started on the Defense Department yet. So
best pit of them all.
Get a peace deal in Ukraine. Continue the peace process. Continue the end of hostilities in the Middle East. and then start auditing everybody in sight. And that, all of that could take a whole year, and it would be the most amazing year in American political history. So I'm very pleasantly surprised so far, and let's see where it goes.
Musk says he thinks he can save $4 billion a day. I think we're up to close to $1 billion a day, which would be $365 billion that he cut off the deficit. And don't forget, that's money we would just have to borrow into existence. So if he can knock off $1.5 trillion annual spending, and we get a few $100 billion in tariffs, we cut some other taxes, all of a sudden our deficit's almost gone. If we sell off a bunch of assets, like the 45% of California that the federal government owns, or the 90%, I think it is, of Nevada and Utah, what is the purpose for the federal government to own that land? There's none that I can see. It's not being productive. There's no benefit to the feds owning half of California.
Well, it's, a lot of the land that they own, I used to live in Idaho, and I can speak firsthand about that, but a lot of that was national wilderness areas. And that is primeval forest where humans don't go, and just we're preserving it. And that's a good thing. I don't want the whole world to be developed, and, roads and gas stations. And, I think we have enough strip malls in this world.
Not in Florida.
Yeah, Florida. It might happen that I come down there and live near you in the not too distant future, Harry. And I think your part of Florida is a good place to live. But a lot of other parts of Florida, frankly, are, they're Southern California-esque hellscapes. Because of that, we just overbuild everything. And if your world is just strip malls to the horizon, that's not a good thing. And, about the federal budget deficit in general, I would say that's a topic for controlling our expectations, managing our expectations, because, Social Security the Social Security payments to legitimate recipients are untouchable. And so is Medicare payments to people who actually qualify. That's untouchable. You can squeeze some of the fraud out of there, but the vast majority of entitlement payments are not going to be cut. The Defense Department, that's kind of a bipartisan boondoggle. With the empire is something that I don't think you could get a congressional majority for dramatic cuts, just because everybody makes money from the military budget, and a lot of people love the U.S. military empire. You combine those guys and you get a voting majority in Congress. Yeah, but self-interest is self-interest for these guys, and I don't see them voting against big military budgets. So that doesn't leave that much, and a lot of what's left over is school lunches and stuff that you can't really legitimately cut. So
voucher, it'll be
yeah, but so let's close down the educational department and USAID and bank that money, and so maybe we cut a few $100 billion a year out of the federal budget, and I mean that it's a cut still. The federal budget never goes down, and if it goes down a little bit under these guys, that's all we can hope for. So my point is, we still have that gigantic financial crisis out there, and DOGE will not stop that from happening. No. And then we have to do the gold standard or the Bitcoin standard, the monetary reset, whatever we end up doing. So that's all baked in the cake. But that doesn't mean we can't do a lot of really good things in the meantime that make the U.S. empire a lot less intrusive around the world, and the government a lot less, blatantly immoral. So all of that could happen. And that means you and I will have a lot of good stuff to talk about. Until the assassinations start happening.
Yeah, well, they got to, certain things just happen the way they happen. Hey, Trump is the first pro-crypto president we've ever had. Here's a trick question for you. Who is the largest holder of Bitcoin in the world?
I want to say MicroStrategies, but you might be implying the federal government.
Yes. 208,000 Bitcoins as of December, or 207,000. Multiply that times 100,000, it's 20 billion. Imagine if they really go full force behind it and it becomes like a $200 trillion market, there's our deficit right there.
See, that is an interesting pump and dump, right? The federal government could set up that national wealth fund, sovereign wealth fund, buy Bitcoins just at the margin, because that would send everybody else into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin would go up without the U.S. government having to spend too much. Then dump it for several $1 trillion and then throw that at the national debt. And okay, that could happen. I think that's completely within the ethical boundaries of Trump and his people, doing a pump and dump with Bitcoin.
Well, I don't have to dump so much as just pay everything off in Bitcoin. Once it's up,
that's a dump.
$1 billion a coin, you just pay all the debts in Bitcoin.
Yeah, but that is effectively a dump. I mean, you're spending it
for a dump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you pump it, it goes up to $1 trillion per coin, or $1 billion per coin.
Billion per coin.
Yeah, and then when you spend it, that's dumping it, and so you can only do that with a little bit at the margin, because everybody else will start front running you unless you lied about who was doing the dumping, and they could do that too. They could say, hey, it must be Saudi Arabia. It's not us. We're still buyers. America is still buying Bitcoin. Why we're dumping it? Yeah.
You know where they got that 207,000 Bitcoins from?
Was it from Mt. Gox or someplace?
From Ross Ulbricht, Silk Road.
Oh, okay.
They confiscated it. Obviously, they were a lot cheaper. I wanted to talk to one other thing I want to talk to you about. Sam Bankman-Fried. All right. I don't think the guy was a thief in the sense of like a Ponzi or a Bernie Madoff. I think he was kind of probably on the spectrum and kind of like didn't really know how to run a business. And he didn't really appreciate you got a bucket here and a bucket there, and on Wall Street you got custody and all that. And, he got a 25-year sentence for I don't think he knows what he did. And all of his creditors got paid off 120 cents on the dollar. And that's after the shenanigans that go on with the U.S. trustee and the law firm and all of that. I mean, everybody is feeding on that carcass. So for somebody to get paid 120 cents on their claim is unheard of. I mean, it never, ever happens. Rarely will it happen, where sometimes they will just go bankrupt to do a liquidation because there's some lurking contingent liabilities out there. They just say enough is enough. Let's just liquidate this guy. But if we don't go bankrupt, we could be personally liable. We go bankrupt, distribute the proceeds, the creditor, the contingent creditors, the contingent liabilities get screwed. Here, man, you read Michael Lewis's book, and, then you see the bank, the law firm who took over the bankruptcy. And I don't want to name names because I don't want to get on their list. I used to do business with them once upon a time. And they're a deep state as it gets. My theory is, he was vulnerable and he was definitely doing some things wrong, but this is a deep state takeout to let Wall Street take over crypto. He was a genius trader, John. He could arbitrage in his head multiple markets, and he's making billions of dollars just arbitraging. He got in over his head, and then they went and dissected him.
Yeah. Well, okay, I don't know anything about the details of that. So I don't have an opinion about whether it was a crime or just an autistic kid who didn't understand what he was doing. I will say that the woman that he had as his CEO of the related hedge fund, she was on TV a lot, and no way in hell was that person the CEO of a hedge fund for real.
Right.
She was just some strange little chick that he picked up somewhere and installed. Yeah.
I think she pleaded guilty. I don't remember. She turned against him. I think she got sentenced. But I'm going to do some more research on it because I am pretty confident that they knew he was underwater. They struck right at that point. and Wall Street picks up the pieces. John, cryptos are the greatest gold rush ever for Wall Street. Think about that, because you don't have to worry about a company making its quarterly numbers and, how much of a dividend they're going to pay out, little things like that historically they were, supposed to be watching. Now it's just what new product, what new ETF, can we sell some futures? Let's trade. And this is the biggest gravy train for Wall Street in history. I'm going to make a prediction here. Every major company, like $10 billion and over, will create their own cryptocurrency. They'll tie it to the dollar, but basically they will pay you in their crypto. If you're a vendor, you can go convert it to money or somebody else's crypto. Probably Elon Musk will start with it. This is what Facebook and Zuckerberg wanted to do like 5-6 years ago. And Janet Yellen said, no, you can't. And that was the end of it. But this is going to happen, John.
Well, Trump will say, yeah, go ahead and do it. Okay, two things about that. One is that what you're talking about is tokenization, where you basically slice and dice everything. It's like securitization, but instead you create some kind of a crypto entity that, and we're doing it for everything, and not just digital assets, but real world assets. By the way, real world assets is now a name for a subcategory of investment assets carved out because they exist. There's actually a category that are defined as existing, and that's their defining trait, because a lot of these other things do not exist. Right?
The meta.
The cryptos have no physical existence. And
they're not worth the paper they're not printed on.
Well, I don't know what it means for their value, but literally they don't have a physical existence, and yet they're investment vehicles and instruments and things like that. So what you were talking about, where everybody creates their own crypto and ties it to the dollar, means the infinite increase in the money supply. So that means spiking inflation for all kinds of things. And it'll be a lot of the low quality cryptos that just cease to exist. Their value will plunge to zero. That'll be their intrinsic value. And then a lot of other things will be caught in the kind of whirlwind that creates. So we're headed for a kind of peak complexity that is just going to be breathtaking, and nobody can predict how it's going to play out, except, in pockets, if not all the way across the board, it's going to be incredibly inflationary.
Can't you see? Remember, banks used to create their own money. They used to have gold in the vault, in theory, and their money was deposit receipts. So for JP Morgan Chase to create a $1 trillion cryptocurrency that, you can deposit in JP Morgan, they'll pay you interest on their own currency, right? And you can use it to buy other stuff, buy stuff in the market, whatever, right? I mean, how can they not do this, John? How can they not?
Well, they'll do it, and everybody will do it. And all of those things that are created are forms of money. They're like dollar bills or, bank statement balance or something like that.
Or treasury bill.
But if everybody's creating them, that means the money supply is going up at an exponential rate. So we get this massive inflation, which is to say most of those things will plunge to zero in value. And, it might end up with a couple of cryptos and gold and silver, the only thing standing at the end of this. So we need to be paying attention to this, because it's destructive for most people. This is going to be something that sucks people in and destroys their lives. So we have to be very careful.
Hey, can you picture, they say you can have your money in deposit at JP Morgan and you'll pay us a fee for the privilege of storing it here, or you can convert to JP's whatever, and you'll make 10% interest. Which one would you prefer? Right? And then they'll have all the dollars and everyone else will have the crypto. When you charge on a JP Morgan credit card, you can pay it with your JPs, right? Pay your bill automatically with JPs. Maybe you'll get a discount if you use JPs, right?
Yep. Yep. And people will fall for that and be destroyed. It's the people who trust the system that end up losing when something like this happens. So we need to make sure we get that message out there that never, ever trust anything you don't understand completely, because the reason you don't understand it is because they're lying in some way about it.
Yeah, because they don't want you to, because your ignorance is not bliss. I think we'll leave it at that. Make sure you go over to John's Substack, rubino.substack.com. And the link is in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com in the show notes to this interview. While you're there, please sign up for your free newsletter, like over 70,000 other FSN members have. We're getting like thousands of signups per week for some reason, John. And hey, we will talk to you again soon. Be well.
All right, Kerry, take care.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.